welcome back to CFB Nation. I am your host, Nino Brown, and this is Devy Darlings. And I got a guy. I found him. I brought him back. He's here. My guy D now, aka Dennis Noel. How we doing, my guy? What's good?
Uh, I'm back. I'm back. I'm excited. We were talking in the back about the next couple shows for Debbie, and each one is going to be a banger. I can already tell. Next couple guys are definitely popping off, so I'm excited.
I'm excited to have my main man back. KT filled in, for your absence. I must commend him. He did a good job. But the band is back together, ready to rock out like the Beatles, and we're hopping into a. I might be late to the party on this guy. I know that there are a couple guys in this community that kind of mentioned him early on, and I was like, oh well, I'm gonna have to see. Couldn't kind of break the trio there, but it seems as though this guy has arrived and they're rolling out the red carpet for him out in Washington. And his name is Denzel Boston. I got to like the name out Massachusetts, Boston. It just kind of got a special place in my heart. Listen, 6'4", 209, right? He was the wide, and this is the thing about the services, bro. I don't trust them anymore. This guy was ranked as the 130th wide receiver in the 2022 class, right? He was the 15th best player in Washington in 2022, coming out of South Hill, Washington, as his hometown. He ended up going to Emerald Ridge High School in Poyup, Washington. Dean, talk to me about his time over there at Emerald Ridge.
Yeah, so at Emerald Ridge, he was a 3-year player for him. His sophomore year, 30 receptions, 360 yards, 7 touchdowns in 10 games. Junior year, 34 receptions, 553 yards, 7 touchdowns, but only in 5 games. Senior year, 36 receptions, about 600 yards, 8 touchdowns in 9 games. So on his career, he had 105 receptions, almost 1,600 yards, and 23 touchdowns. And to top it off, he carried the ball for 4 times for 13 yards. So not too bad. I'm kind of curious to see how those numbers would have played out had he done full seasons, and if it would have boosted his rankings at all. But still, not too shabby.
Not at all. And I want to iterate the 209 that I mentioned earlier. That's now. His senior year as a freshman coming into Washington, he was 183. So
I love that college weight room.
At 6'3", 6'4", at 180. I mean, that's a skinny guy on the outside. So you look at him now, he's filled out the frame, being in that college weight room, like you had said. And like I said, wide receiver 130, didn't really get a lot of offers. He had 7. He ended up committing to Washington. And he was recruited by Andre Allen out of Washington, who I want to admit, tell you, he's persuaded Sean Striblin, before he ended up, going over to Oklahoma State. He had him committed. So, he was the guy that recruited Striblin hard. That's a high talent guy. You know what I mean? He was recruited offers from Arizona State, Nevada, Eastern Washington, UCLA, Washington State. Arizona State, Prentice Gill was really pushing to get this guy. And Gill was a major factor in bringing in Johnny Wilson to Arizona State before he ended up transferring to Florida State, as well as Elijah Badger, who's now at Florida, and he's doing his thing. So, I mean, they saw the talent, and these guys have both, had recruited big name guys. So, some guys, he just fell under the radar, but this dude, he's got it. And we're both going to talk about, the attributes that we've seen that jumped off the screen to us. But this is a guy kind of pulled an Eminem, right? He just patiently waited for his turn behind, like I said, the 3-headed monster of Polk, McMillian, and Odzune. And now he's kind of grabbing the bull by the horns and taking over this room. A couple of things that I love that stood out to me. Great hands. This kid catches everything, right? And I don't know if this way I say this is going to make sense to you, but he's elusive, but he's not twitchy. You know what I'm saying? He's not like a Tank Dell, but he just knows how to win, whether it's a one-step jab, whether it's running right through you and then making an in cut. You know what I mean? He just has a way of creating separation, but it's not that flashy movement, right? He's got good anticipation. He just knows where to be for his quarterback. If he sees his quarterback, having a rollout, having him being in distress, he can break off the route. He can go get to a spot where his quarterback can see him and get the ball to him. He's a good route runner. He can run a lot of the route. I mean, not running all 9, probably run 6 out of the 9, but he's got good footwork. He's tough. He's not easy to tackle. And one thing he said that he worked on this year in the offseason was being physical from start to finish in the route. Like wanted to be run through the DB. So smaller DBs are kind of having trouble with him this year, and that was the thing that he worked on. What are some of the things that you saw?
Yeah, so first thing I saw with his size, he is a contested catch killer. If it's one-on-one, he's gonna almost box you out, make sure he catches it. He's an outside wide receiver, but like we were talking in the green room, he's not just a boundary guy. He's kind of a field general, does everything, does anything. And like you said, he waited behind the three-headed guys last couple of years, kind of saw how to do it at the next level, what it takes to be successful, and he's kind of turned into that vocal leader for that group and that offense as a whole. And then not only as a wide receiver, he's also a special teams threat, which I love. Anything to get on the field to help your team. So those are some things that I noticed.
Yeah, I mean, and it seems as though like even though he's the guy this year, for them, he's still getting returns. But I think he already has like 5 or 6 punt returns this year, already in 4 games. So yeah, I mean, he has all the pieces to the pie. I think I like his game, and when I get to one of the guys that I think he reminds me of a little bit, a lot of guys might be like, it's just he can be anywhere. He lines up outside the most, but he can kind of do it anywhere on the field, inside, outside. They don't line up in a slot, but he can work the field, in between the hash. Don't get me wrong. I don't want people to think, oh, you can play the slot. No, he doesn't really play the slot. He's 88% on the outside. But this guy, he might line up in a slot, but within like 6 steps, he's already inside the hashes and catching the ball and moving. So, especially in Washington, 2 receptions, 15 yards. He redshirted. And then his redshirt freshman year in 2023, he had 5 receptions, 51 yards. Like I said, there was 3 guys that were just always there. When one guy went down, the next guy kind of stepped up. So there really wasn't an opportunity for him to kind of eat. This year, when there's a chance for him to eat, already 24 receptions on 31 targets, 287 yards, and he leads the team in touchdowns with 5. Out of the 287, 110 come after contact. And that is not his thing. Like, he is not that guy, but he's physical after the catch. If you've seen it in the intro, catches to the boundary. You're going to make work, whether it's back shoulder, whether he's going to turn to get it. He's not just going to catch a ball and go down. He's going to fight for that extra 2-3 yards every time. I mentioned earlier, he lines up outside almost 90% of the time. You said it, contested catch killer. This dude is 6 for 8 on the year already. That's a 75% win rate. The touchdown at the end of the intro, man. 2 guys draped on him. Perfect throw by Rodgers in the end zone, in the basket. Money, straight cash, homie, like Randy Moss. I mean, this guy's got it. And he's, like I said, he's not that deep threat guy. His A-dot is about 8. So it's kind of like the short and intermediate game is where this guy eats. He's a chain mover, 18 first downs. One thing that I kind of would like to see more of, like I said, he knows how to win. He's not twitchy. He only has 4 missed tackles forced. So that whole I want to run through you type deal, like that Malachi Corley thing, he kind of has that mentality where he'd rather run through you and get tackles for 1 yard gain extra than try to shake and bake. And he only has 1 drop on the year. And like I said, he's sure-handed. Talk to me about this room here. He's not like the stat leader. He leads in touchdowns, but he's obviously wide receiver 1.
Right. Yeah. Again, the old dogs are gone. Like you said, he's not leading in every stats, but he's alpha. Right now, they have senior wide receiver Giles Jackson, 27 receptions, 342 yards, but only 1 touchdown. Then they have senior Jeremiah Hunter, only 10 receptions, 134 yards, 1 touchdown. And then they do have a freshman, Rashid Williams, 2 receptions, 44 yards. So, I mean, like we've been saying, 3-headed monster's gone. They're going to need some guys to step up, and clearly Boston's doing that for them.
Yeah, I mean, Boston's a big body guy. Jackson, he's you You see him side by side, bro. Jackson looks like mini me. He's like my size, 5'8", 5'7". He's more that slot guy. He's the guy that's going to be, working all around. He's the guy that can take, quote unquote, the top off the ball for the Huskies. So he's that speedster guy. I got a couple comps here. Now, one comp I'm going to start out with for the physical play, the run right through you, the contested catch ability. I'm not so much the wow. I'm not going for the one-handed wow thing. And in college, he didn't have the craziest stats, okay? He didn't really play a shit ton of games outside of his freshman year at Georgia, where he almost put up 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. But George Pickens, all right, I get this vibe from him because he's strong. I want to beat you at the line of scrimmage. You're not a better alpha dog than I am type guy. And I feel like he has that. And he went out to try to get bigger and stronger this year, and he's established that. Another guy that I see, and he may not be a guy that wows guys. Even these fantasy people talk, but if you go and look, a lot of fantasy guys that win championships have this guy in the team, okay?
Yeah.
Because he's a grinder, and he just always manages to get, 6 to 8 receptions a game, somewhere between 50 to 80 yards. He's just always in that building. Jacoby Myers. And the main reason I say Jacoby Myers is I had a good chance in New England to watch this guy for a long time, okay? He would work outside, and he would always end up in the middle of the field. He'd always end up in between the hashes. He would be that guy on third down that just know when to sit down in the pocket, right? Probably work on a tackle with an arm tackle. You kind of have to wrap this guy up. He wasn't like this jacked up physical receiver, but he wasn't a guy that was just going to fall down when you hit him with an ankle tackle, right? I feel like Boston, ceiling floor, somewhere, or if they both emerge together, that's the type of play you're getting here. Both of these guys are pretty sure-handed. One guy is going out there making one-handed spectacular catches. Jacoby Myers just grinds him, and anything you throw at him, he's pretty much catching. Does well against the boundary, works the middle of the field. So those are two comps I see. What are your thoughts there before we break down yours?
Yeah, so I mean, if he even sniffs anywhere near George Pickens, obviously it's going to be a stud. But if he's Jacoby Myers, I mean, how long has Jacoby Myers been in the league? And consistent workload year in, year out, like you said, will get you a handful of fantasy points every single week, will help you over the edge every single week fantasy-wise. So, I mean, even if he lands there, you're still getting a solid number 2 at the worst. So either way, it's a win-win. So I don't hate either of those comps.
At North Carolina State, I mean, people forget about Myers. He put up 1,700 yards in 2 years and had like 9 touchdowns. I mean, those are solid numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I forgot he went to North Carolina State. I'll be honest.
All right, hit me with your guys here.
All right, so mine are pretty much off the eye test. Size-wise, my first comp is my more recent. It's going to be Nico Collins, Michigan, Houston Texans, jack body, almost same size. Again, not super elusive, but can hit you with the one step and beat you.
Yes.
I think he's really underrated as a route runner. And again, can't arm tackle this kid. My second one is my little old head that I told you about, and that's Hakeem Nicks out of UNC and the Giants and a handful of other places. Again, big physical wide receiver. Wasn't going to beat you deep, but knew how to find the open windows across the middle or on the sideline. Had really great, strong hands. Didn't really drop much at the beginning of his career. Injuries kind of let him down towards the end, but those are my two comps.
I love it. I mean, the next one I love because he's kind of a guy that was forgotten. He was a guy that would go up and get the ball, had no problem going to get the guy. Another guy that would work the middle of the field, like you mentioned in that short and intermediate game. He wasn't afraid of the safety, wasn't afraid of the linebackers. And at that time, linebackers was 240. You know what I mean? Those big bodied guys. So he wasn't afraid to work the middle. I'm on with that one with Boston and Knicks. I mean, Nico Collins. Everybody's on the Nico Collins train now, right? At Michigan, nobody really thought he was going to be a dude, right? Like,
yep.
I was talking with my Bob the other day, and I was like, Nico kind of reminds me of another Michigan receiver, like a Braylon Edwards, like just a guy that grinded it out. Like Braylon Edwards had more maybe wild catches,
highlights. Yeah,
but like he was never like, oh, I got to go get Braylon Edwards. He's got to be my one, but he's a guy that performs every single week. I feel like Nico's doing that. Now that he's getting competent quarterback play, you're starting to see what was there that was kind of just buried a little bit, threw some dirt on where he was in Michigan, where he didn't have, that.
Or to even go down the Michigan rabbit hole even further, if I had to compare him to someone outside of Nico Collins, I'm not sure if you are familiar with Adrian Arrington. He was kind of number two for Braylon Edwards at the same time. Another bigger body wide receiver that was kind of quiet. But yeah, I only know that because he's from my hometown. So little subtle plug.
Fun fact from Dino's fun facts. We might be bringing in a new segment to the Devy Darlings here. Yeah, I think this kid's got it. I think this talent's there. Like I said, I was a little late to the party. There was a couple guys in the community that kind of were throwing out blurps about, Denzel Boston's going to be the new Husky guy. And I'm like, a lot of moving parts out there. The room's kind of weak. Maybe not. I don't trust Will Rogers. It didn't matter. It doesn't really matter. I think he's just a guy, and he's got another season. So you got this year, right? And you got another year before he can come out. Whether he will or not, we'll see. If he can stack 3 good years at the collegiate level when these guys left, oh man, I mean value just going to skyrocket.
I think he's going to need all 3 years to be ready. In just
agreed. I think if he stays all 3 years, you're going to get a guy that's a physical wide receiver. That's probably going to be getting you 65% of the route tree. I mean, this kid's pretty good right now. Like I said, he probably runs about 5 of the 9, maybe even 6 of them. But you let this kid polish his bag up a little bit for the next 2-3 years. Get obviously Rogers is gone after this year, but get in line with another QB for 2 more years, get a chemistry with him. Watch out. I think this kid could be, maybe a top 15 in his class whenever he decides to come out. So, all right.
Absolutely.
I'm Nino Brown. That's my guy, Dino. I think next episode, we're going to go James Madison. We're going to be talking about a kid that's kind of just taking, the Dukes by storm here and put him on his back, and they're cooking. And Alonzo Burnett III. When we talk about him, and then when we talk about the quarterback, Darian Menza out of Tulane, following up after that. Both of those guys. So if you're a fan, of young quarterbacks that are out there, kind of stunting on their daddy, tune in the next couple of weeks at Devy Darlings. Me and Dino will be breaking these guys down and why we believe that they are possibly a Devy Darling that could be playing on Sundays at the next level. Again, it's the CFB Nation, Devy Darlings. That's Dino. I'm downtown Nino Brown, and we out.